Hey there, eighth grade. Bear with me. For some reason, my computer is lagging a ton. Hopefully, just on my end, and everything else is coming out just fine for you, so I don't have to make this video more than once. Today, we are going to be talking about mainly the Emancipation Proclamation, which is a huge piece of legislation that passed through Congress during Abe Lincoln's presidency. Now, something really important that we need to talk about before the Emancipation Proclamation took root is called, I wrote it down, give me a moment, the Second Confiscation Act. The Second Confiscation Act gave President Lincoln power to confiscate property from rebelling states. If you remember back to the beginning of the year, we talked about when they were making the Constitution, they didn't know how to include African Americans because they didn't want them to count as a full person, so they came up with the Three-Fifths Compromise. And so because they were not actually considered a full person, property that Abe Lincoln could confiscate from rebelling states included things like farm equipment, guns, or slaves. So that's a really important distinction, and it brings us back to the beginning of the year. Now let's get to the Emancipation Proclamation. The Emancipation Proclamation is interesting because Abe Lincoln gave a preliminary Emancipation Proclamation in which he said, on January 1st of 1863, I am going to free the slaves. He gave this proclamation a few months before that. Now, the rules that went along with the Emancipation Proclamation were that you needed to be a rebelling state. If you remember, there were some border states. So the people in these border states still saw President Lincoln as their president, not Jefferson Davis, but they did still have slaves. Now, the Emancipation Proclamation gave President Lincoln the freedom to free slaves in only rebelling states. So if you were a border state that held slaves, the act didn't reach you. It didn't matter. You had to be a rebelling state, which is a really interesting concept, as in slaves that belonged to states that saw Abraham Lincoln as president didn't get the same benefits as slaves that lived in rebelling states. So on January 1st of 1863, the Emancipation Proclamation took effect, which technically, and we'll talk about that term later next week, technically freed the slaves. I miss you guys. It looked like we had a little bit of technical difficulties with the Zoom meeting last week. Once again, hopefully that's all figured out. I hope to see you guys in the Zoom meeting this week. Everything else is the same. So I miss you guys. Yeah, happy May. We're almost there. Have a great one, ladies and gentlemen. Bye.